again. More on that, plus both presidential candidates are getting ready for their third and final face-off. Brand new polling out before the debate show at least some momentum for Hillary Clinton nationally. Results from 3 recent polls of a 4-way race, each showing Clinton with a lead. Let's take a look. 11 points, 7 points, 4 points over Donald Trump. Each of these polls were taken immediately after the second debate, as well as after that hot mic video of Trump making lewd comments about women. And on this Sunday, Trump active on social media, again claiming the election on November 8th is already rigged, but took his claim a step further today and included polling places. Quote, the election is absolutely being rigged by the dishonest and distorted media pushing crooked Hillary, but also at many polling places. Sad. It should be noted the Associated Press has reported no evidence has been found that voter fraud is widespread in the United States. The AP citing a study which found of 1 billion votes cast in all American elections between 2000 and 2014, there were only 31 known cases of impersonation fraud. We have Fox team coverage. Mike Emanuel is standing by. Let's start outside Trump Tower in New York City with chief political correspondent Carl Cameron. Carl, what's Trump thinking with the rigged strategy at this point?
Well, they look at the polls every day, and he talks about them when they are in his favor and not so much when they are not. And the Trump campaign recognizes that at this point, it's going down to the wire, and he's had a rough patch since the last debate. The next one could be tremendously consequential. And his senior advisors effectively argue that what they are now trying to do is essentially suppress Hillary Clinton's votes by pointing out all of her foibles, all of her controversies, all of her scandals, by going after the FBI and the Justice Department and suggesting that they dropped the ball deliberately and committed a, quote, fraud, in Donald Trump's words, by failing to charge her in the email server scandal. The attempt by the Trump campaign is to turn off Democratic voters, turn off swing voters, the independent and the undecideds, so that Trump's very, very aggressive, loyal following can win in a low turnout election. Donald Trump effectively has attacked Hillary Clinton, has attacked the media, has attacked the Republican Party, has attacked the Republican Party leader, House Speaker Paul Ryan, and the Democratic Party, saying that they rigged it and cheated Bernie Sanders. This has created in some of the Trump supporters a rhetoric about the possibility of refusing to accept the outcome of the election. There's even been talks of pitchforks and torches. But it was Mike Pence, the Republican running mate, governor of Indiana today, that said, well, no, the Trump-Pence ticket will accept the will of the people, even if it doesn't go Donald Trump's way. Watch.
One of the great traditions of America is the peaceful transfer of power. The stakes are so high in this election, but as Donald Trump said in that first debate, I'll say to you again today, we're going to accept the will of the American people.
So it doesn't mean that they're going to look for something to sort of overturn the results at the end, but it does suggest that Donald Trump is prepared, if he should not be the winner, to blame it on a system that he has from almost the very beginning of his campaign complained is rigged. Harris?
Well, there is something to win before November 8th, and that is the final debate between these two, which is this Wednesday, October 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Everybody's night's made. They know where to watch that on Fox. So how is Trump preparing for Wednesday's debate?
Well, he's already sort of debuted in plain view a whole series of new attack lines. Yesterday in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, for instance, he suggested that there should be drug testing on Wednesday night, suggesting that Hillary Clinton had been doping prior to the last debate and came in pumped up. And so he said, I don't know what's going on here, but maybe we should need drug testing, and the crowd absolutely loved it. He has been very aggressively pounding the media for not having covered the email scandals, particularly those hacked emails that have been released by Wikileaks now, in an ever-growing avalanche of tough news for her. Today's a good example of what happens when the media doesn't have Donald Trump's latest outbursts to report on. He's actually in debate preps in Bedminster, New Jersey. It's about an hour west of here. He's been going to New Jersey pretty much every Sunday when he has been in town for that debate prep. We do not have any indication that we will see the type of performance that we saw at the pre-debate last week, or a week ago, excuse me, when the Trump campaign brought out 4 of the Bill Clinton accusers to a pre-debate news conference. That type of showmanship we haven't heard about yet, but it is a fair bet given from the attacks on the establishment, attacks on the electoral process, and attacks even on fellow Republicans and Hillary Clinton, that when Donald Trump hits the debate stage on Wednesday night, this is likely to be another brawl if he has his way.
All right, Carl Cameron, our viewers don't know this yet. We're going to tell them now. We're going to ask you to stand by because we're going to do something special in a moment, so we'll come back to you. As I mentioned, Hillary Clinton is off the campaign trail, prepping for Wednesday's debate as well, we're told, while her running mate, Tim Kaine, was busy in her place. Virginia Senator Kaine weighed in on Wikileaks of all those emails regarding Hillary Clinton and her Clinton Foundation, so on and so forth, and also the campaign. Our team coverage continues with senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel near the Clinton family home in Chappaqua, New York. Mike?
Well, Harris, good evening. What's striking from the WikiLeaks latest is essentially some of the tough criticism coming from Clinton allies, including criticism of Hillary Clinton herself. For example, Neera Tanden, Center for American Progress, wrote to John Podesta saying, quote, her inability to just do a national interview and communicate genuine feelings of remorse and regret is now, I fear, becoming a character problem more so than honesty. There's also the ongoing controversy about Communications Director Jen Palmieri, who criticized media moguls for raising their children Catholic. Palmieri notes she is a Catholic, and so is running mate Tim Kaine, who was on the spot today.
Palmieri, who is Catholic. She has said, yeah, I sent that email, and I had some opinions, and I shared them. But I do know what Hillary Clinton thinks about Catholicism because she picked a Catholic running mate.
About some of the bickering on email, Kaine reluctantly acknowledged later that sometimes there's some of this stuff going on behind the scenes at campaigns. Harris?
Yeah, well, it can get a little chippy. What about all that sniping between the people inside the Clinton world, if you will, those insiders?
Yeah, some really tough stuff, including some harsh criticism of the Clintons' own daughter. For example, Doug Band had written to John Podesta saying at one point that he thought Chelsea Clinton was acting like a spoiled brat kid. Then Band emailed this about Chelsea saying, as they say, the apple doesn't fall far, a kiss on the cheek while she is sticking a knife in the back and front. We're told Hillary Clinton's initial reaction to Doug Band's criticism was that she was not upset, saying that her daughter was the only one tough enough to stand up to Band. Harris?
What's ahead for Clinton at this point?
Well, her week seems entirely focused on this third and final presidential debate, the showdown in Sin City. Clinton stayed out of the spotlight today, remaining behind closed doors much of the day doing debate preparation. We do not expect to see much of her tomorrow either. The bottom line, the Clinton campaign sees these polls. They see that they are ahead. The focus now seems to be, don't blow it. Harris?
All right, let's bring back Carl Cameron now for bonus political journalism now with both Carl and Mike. Love to get you guys together. Open up your reporters' notebooks. Carl, first, is Clinton vulnerable to this low turnout strategy of Donald Trump's? And for you, Mike, what is Mrs. Clinton doing about it? And what is she doing to bring out the vote? You guys can kind of talk to each other at this point.
Well, from my perspective here, Mike, it's fairly evident that the Trump campaign recognizes that the electorate is very divided, quite cynical, easily angered, and disillusioned. And in doing so, they want to encourage that, so to speak, and suppress Hillary Clinton's votes. Now, since we're talking Vegas, you got to talk about risk, right? And it's always a gamble when you try to depress the vote. But again, today was interesting. Trump was not on the campaign trail. He did do a couple of tweets, but he didn't create the type of fodder that often makes him the dominant lead story in the news. By being off the campaign trail, by toning it down a little bit and letting Hillary Clinton and her email scandals leaked by Wiki, all these hacked emails, the Trump campaign took note today that a lot of the media that they have been very critical about has put more about the email scandal on the air today. So it illustrates the dilemma that Trump faces. He would like very much to undercut Hillary Clinton's vote, but sometimes keeping silent and letting her bake in the sun creates something of a burn.
All right, Mike?
Well, Carl, I would just say that the Clinton campaign has openly expressed concern about voter suppression, essentially people getting fed up from all the negativity and saying they're going to stay home. And they are very much concerned about this WikiLeaks drip, drip, drip of daily emails from John Podesta, 10 years worth, coming out day after day after day. And they have warned Democrats, essentially saying that if you're thinking about voting for a third-party candidate, take a look at Al Gore. In fact, they brought Vice President Al Gore out on the campaign trail to Miami this past week and said, if you're thinking about going third party, well, Some people did that with Ralph Nader back in the day in 2000, and that led to President George W. Bush. So if you're thinking about expressing your frustration with your vote, bottom line, that could lead to President Donald Trump. But they are worried that Donald Trump at this point is trying to do a race to the bottom, and so they're trying to energize their folks to still come out and turn out in big numbers and not pay attention to the polls, just deliver a victory on Election Day.
Boy, I got to tell you, listening to both of you kind of riff on this, it points to the fact that, Mike and Carl, this could actually work for Donald Trump. I want to give you both a quick last word. Carl?
The last word for Donald Trump will come on the debate and on Election Day. But tomorrow, we're told, one of the words we're going to hear a lot of is Podesta.
Okay.
As Mike was talking about, the Clinton campaign is worried about it, and the Trump campaign knows that. They smell blood, and they're going to go for it.
All right. Mike, Carl, thank you very much. I appreciate the extra time, the bonus time you've given us. We'll come back if the news warrants this hour, but so far, thank you. So Wednesday's showdown in the Nevada desert will be monumental for at least a couple of reasons. One to note, it will be the final general election presidential debate this season between Trump and Clinton. It will also be the first ever moderated by someone from the Fox News channel. That honor will go to Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace. Don't miss Fox News coverage of the debate Wednesday, October 19th, beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern, live from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Your night is made. Pop your corn. Be there. Clinton's private email server was not thorough. FBI notes are indicating there may have been a quid pro quo deal worked out between the State Department and FBI agents over a classified email. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman Congressman Jason Chaffetz is telling Fox News, quote, in return for altering the classification of that email, the possibility of additional slots for the FBI at missions overseas were discussed, end quote. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live for us in Washington on a story to help us make sense of this, its importance. Catherine.
That's right, Harris. State Department Senior Executive Patrick Kennedy is a key player in the email investigation, as well as the 2012 Benghazi terrorist attack, and now he's at the center of allegations that there was discussion of a quid pro quo between Kennedy and an FBI agent investigating the mishandling of classified information. Late Friday, the FBI sent a third batch of interviews from the Clinton investigation to the House Intelligence and Government Oversight Committees. Republican lawmakers briefed by staffers say Kennedy wanted the classification of at least one email changed in a way that would benefit the department as well as Clinton. And in exchange, there was discussion of more slots for FBI agents overseas. Campaigning in Kansas, Congressman Mike Pompeo told Fox, quote, "It is so representative of the behavior we have seen consistently from the State Department, where every effort was made to protect not our American servicemen in the field, not American national security information, but Hillary Clinton." Another lawmaker called it potential evidence of criminality, Harris.
The FBI and the campaign all together.
Well, that's right. This morning on Fox News Sunday, Hillary Clinton's running mate was pressed on the accusations.
To your knowledge, did anyone associated with Secretary Clinton or her campaign ask or instruct Kennedy to seek changes to classification of emails?
Absolutely not. I have no knowledge that that happened. Absolutely not.
State Department spokesman said this allegation is inaccurate and does not align with the facts. But in this heavily redacted FBI interview made public last month, one of Kennedy's subordinates told agents that he was pressuring State Department personnel. Reads in part, quote, Kennedy held a closed-door meeting with Redacted and Redacted, where Kennedy pointedly asked Redacted to change the FBI's classification determination regarding one of Clinton's emails, which the FBI considered classified. The emails was related to FBI counterterrorism operations. And while acknowledging today that the Clinton email classification and overseas posts for FBI agents were discussed in the same phone call, a Bureau spokesman said the issues were not connected and the email classification was never changed. The new FBI files could be public as early as tomorrow, and then we'll get a chance to independently review those interviews, Harris.
Wow. Not a day goes by that we don't see something fresh and breaking on this.
This is extremely serious.
It is.
It
Catherine,
really
thank
is.
you very much. And in fact, this topic then, in a different way, continues because new day bringing a new dump from Wikileaks, more emails. Kristen Fisher has more on that. And Kristen, you know, from today's release, even a different angle, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's a drip that just changes every single day. So today, WikiLeaks released hundreds of more emails. But here's two that really stood out. The first is from August of 2015, about 2 weeks before Clinton finally apologized for her use of a private email server while Secretary of State. A longtime Clinton ally emailed her campaign chair, John Podesta, to say that Clinton's, quote, inability to just do a national interview and communicate genuine feelings of remorse and regret is now, I fear, becoming a character problem, more so than honesty. Podesta responded by saying, trying to figure out how to get her there and the best way to execute. So that just goes to show you that even some of Clinton's top advisors were uncomfortable with the lack of remorse that Clinton seemed to be showing at the start of this whole scandal. Now, Harris, another email that's really raising some eyebrows has to do with Podesta's response to the San Bernardino terror attack. Someone sent him this tweet from MSNBC's Chris Hayes, which identified Saeed Farook as the shooter, to which Podesta responded, better if a guy named Saeed Farook was reporting that a guy named Christopher Hayes was the shooter. So there you have one of Clinton's top aides lamenting the fact that the shooter had a Muslim name, and that really just underscores one of the biggest critiques of both Clinton and President Obama, their aversion to sort of conflating Islam and terrorism. Harris?
Wow. Shocking. So how does the Clinton campaign respond to something like this?
Well, they're really just trying to delegitimize these emails by saying the source can't be trusted. They claim that WikiLeaks is in cahoots with the Kremlin and that both are trying to interfere with our election. Listen to what Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine, said this morning on Fox News Sunday.
Since they're part of an effort by both Russia and WikiLeaks, and neither of those are kind of transmitters of information, you can't just automatically assume that everything is on the up and up with these emails.
So the Clinton campaign will not confirm the authenticity of any of these leaked emails, but Harris, they're also not denying them either, which says a lot right there.
Wow. I don't know that you technically can stay neutral with something like this, but we'll see what happens. Kristen, thank you. So I'm going to ask the Fox News political insiders about this. One of them, you know, knows the Clintons very well, Doug Schoen. He's one of our insiders. They're up next. Stay with us. So let's just jump right in. The state of the race right now. Doug Schoen, former strategic advisor to President Bill Clinton, 6 years in the White House doing that, now a Fox News contributor. John LeBoutelier, former field director for President Ford in '76 and a New York politician as well. Pat Caddell, strategic advisor to President Jimmy Carter and Fox News contributor as well. I want to jump in state of the race right now, Pat.
Well, I think the state of the race is we don't know. I mean, we think Hillary is ahead. We have polling that shows today, just today, that one poll shows she's 11 points ahead, another poll she's
We can
4.
pop that up on the screen.
And another poll shows the ABC poll is 4. We have the Fox poll last week, which went from 3 polls, including the week before, at 2 points party difference, Democrats, Republicans, which with the margin of error and other things, I think is now the most important number, suddenly went from 2 to 9, with 1/4 of conservatives voting for not only for Hillary, but for the Democrats for Congress. I don't believe that. We need to look at these. Something's happening with the polls. They're very different. But we need to be somewhat suspect of all of them.
When you say something's happening with the polls, Doug, I want to ask you, what's happening with the polls?
Sure. Well, it's pretty simple. The Secretary of State has got a 5 or 6 point lead in the Real Clear Politics average. She's ahead in 13 of 14 swing states. She's well over 300 electoral votes. I think, as I've said before on this program, she's poised to win, and the 538 analysis, Nate Silver, gives her an 87% chance of winning, which I think is about right.
All right, the silent Trump vote, and I hear about this on the ground with voters, with viewers, John, that people really, this environment is so politically charged, nobody wants to say really honestly who they're voting for.
Right. Well,
is that a possibility that vote exists?
Yes, I think there's a hidden Trump vote, and I think there's another thing through the last several political cycles where the polling, and I can give 4 instances, 2014 Senate races predicted the Democrats would keep the Senate, Republicans won it by 4 seats. 2015 Kentucky governor's race, The Republican, Matt Bevin, was behind by 5 points in the poll going into Election Day, won by 9%. It's a 14-point gap.
A Trumpian kind of candidate.
A Trumpian-type candidate. Benjamin Netanyahu was behind in the polls going in February 2015, won big. And Brexit, most polls had it winning, and it lost. So there's something, as Pat says, going on in polling that conservatives are being undercounted.
Pat?
Well, plus I think that there is some, we don't know, there's sampling problems everywhere. But you need to know the size of the sample, you know how it's done. It could be the live calls, despite the fact that some believe that, and that those are the only credible polls, may in fact be running into what you're saying. People who are reluctant to say or talk to a live person. Maybe these online polls are better. It certainly was in Brexit. Who knows?
Pat, if I were the Hillary campaign, I would assume 5 points.
5. That's it.
I would say 5 points that I would assume Trump's going to get beyond what is polling.
Oh, really?
I would, just to be safe.
Well, that puts them into a statistical heat in most cases.
And then
let's
give
talk
Hillary
about women voters, because that's something else if we can. And I know we're having some issues with putting numbers and things up on the screen. So if my team works it out, we'll let you know. But 20%, a 20-point lag between Trump and Hillary Clinton among female voters. Yeah. When you look at the fact, Doug, that we make up 53% of the electorate, is that as big a deal as it looks like on paper?
It absolutely is, Harris. I can't underscore it enough. The fact that Donald Trump is not campaigning on the issues, but he's rebutting the increasing number of allegations against him, attacking the Secretary of State and Bill Clinton, all that does is drive up the gender gap and, frankly, in my judgment, make it tougher for him to win, because he's not talking about change and corruption. He's rebutting allegations he should largely avoid.
All right. I want to add some balance here, too, Pat, because when you ask in one poll, when you ask women whether or not the whole discussion over the hot mic situation with the lewd comments coming about women from Donald Trump really mattered in their vote, 63% said that is not an issue that they consider to be important to them when it comes to voting. Here it is.
Okay. So.
Trump's comments on videotape, do they matter? 64% say it's no difference.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they haven't already assumed he's a bad guy, so the tape doesn't make any difference. They say, I already knew he was a bad guy.
Look,
that doesn't really
the media, part of this is, we cannot ignore it now, is how the media is piling on in a way that is unprecedented, including, I believe, in some of the polling in which they use it to drive narrative. I have a suspicion about some of the polls and how they're being manipulated. But I want to go to a larger point, which is the one Doug is saying. Last week, Donald Trump spoke in West Palm Beach, gave a great speech on raising what I would call Smithian issues of the candidate Smith, the corruption, the issue of who runs the country, all of those things that followed it by his defense on women. And then he sort of dropped that and went into the women's defense. It's all the media wants to cover. That's what's been driving it. And it's going into this debate. Now, let me tell you, we saw a Wall Street Journal article that suggested that he had advisors telling him that the strategy was to drive down Hillary's vote. I want to tell you now, that strategy, if he was given that as strategy, and I assume it can't possibly.
We've reported it this hour.
It is insane. It is not only insane. I've done this before in state races. It will not work in a presidential.
You don't think it'll work?
And it's malpractice at a presidential level.
I want to talk about this because this made news on this Sunday. An independent candidate is shaking up the presidential race in Utah. If you've been watching it, Evan McMullin describes himself as the only true conservative in the race, although he has not held elected office, and he's not actually technically under any one major party, but he's giving both nominees a run for their money in his home state. McMullin spoke with Leland Vittert earlier today. Watch.
We are building a new conservative movement that I think will be the future of the conservative movement in general, one that's open to people of all races and religions, one that treats both women and men equally as they are in fact, and that's what we're building here, and we're very excited about that, and we needed to stand up now to make that point, because if you stand up after the election and you didn't stand up during the election, what legitimacy really do you have?
All right, so it's his home state, but when you factor him in, he gets a number like 20%. And he's only registered in 11 states on the ballot, but there's an article, I believe it's in the Times, about the moonshot of Evan McMillan. I mean, what do you make of this?
We go back to last spring, and Bill Kristol had a meeting with Mitt Romney where they decided we have to get somebody to run. Would you do it, Mitt, to run, not to win the election, but to take enough votes, away from Trump to deprive him first of the nomination, they hoped, and then of the general election. And it's reduced to this guy, who no one's ever heard of, not a bad person, but not really a presidential timber person yet, in one state. And the race is somewhat close in Utah, but, you know.
There was a poll today, the CBS Battleground poll, that showed Trump at 37 and Hillary Clinton and McMillan tied at 20. I don't, what this is the last desperate effort of the Romney people and Republicans who wish to destroy their party in order to save it, which is their strategy. Bill Kristol, these people, it's like the village in Vietnam. We had